Victoria, you're my friend, you're my neighbor, my confidant, mother of two, founder of an amazing tech startup with a long, long, long history of family drama.
Woohoo!
You good?
I'm great because I'm here sitting with you.
Oh.
And I'm living in this beautiful present moment of us sitting in Los Angeles having a conversation.
How blessed we are.
Yep.
VDLF, Victoria De La Fuente. Thank you for being here today, honey.
So happy to be here. This is so exciting.
This is so fun. My
2
neighbor.
weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, we were just having sushi and you told me I'm going to do a podcast and I'm going to do it. And I'm like, okay. And mind you, like, I'm not really that good. I have been planning on a podcast for a year. It didn't even work out. And she acted on it. 2 weeks later, here we are with a full setup and we're filming.
You know, thanks, babe.
It's a really big deal.
I mean,
really
it's
big
been
deal.
a long time coming, you know, but there's nothing like being real with yourself to unblock.
Yeah.
I just had an interview and she said unlock and unblock. So I thought that was kind of cool, but thanks. I mean, I'm inspired. I'm inspired to talk to you. I'm inspired to talk to my friends who are doing things, who've overcome things, who have lived real life and are ready to share their story and be vulnerable, because I feel like the world needs to hear it.
We need more real stories out there, that's for sure.
Yes, we do. And you are one of the realists, babe.
Which really gets me into trouble most of the time, but like, you know,
Most
I'll
of
try
the
to keep it
time.
PG-13.
And did you learn it from your mother, who's also a famous talk show
Probably.
host in Latin America?
I feel like there was always an emphasis in my life to be who I was, unapologetically who I was, always. And then that was my virtue and that was my power.
Because that was the example that your
My
mother...
mom was and her mom was, right? So like my grandma was wearing like leather jacket in the 60s in Peru. She went to college. Women didn't go to college.
Oh, wow.
She was like driving motorcycles in full leather at 65, which basically was like a dead
Wow.
woman walking, like, you know what I mean? In
Yeah.
this, like, you know, 60s, 70s. Like, so I always saw women that were like breaking the mold and like being different. And I really always saw kind of like what that brought. And I just wanted to be like them.
Well, you're doing it, babe.
I'm doing my best.
You're doing it. You're
doing my
doing
best.
all the things. And, you know, I want to talk about resilience with you today, because I see a lot of resilience in you, and it inspires me to be resilient in all of the business and life woes that I have. I just see you dealing with life and going through things and being honest with yourself and making it happen.
Well, I feel like being resilient is basically showing up for yourself, right? And
What do you mean?
doing the things, like making the time, putting yourself first, and like things are gonna go wrong. I feel like I'm a Virgo, so
Same.
I spent most of my life trying to not make mistakes. I'm also the first daughter, and there was a lot of expectation on me, right? So I always felt this urge to always be perfect, and it's just impossible, right? It's just way too much pressure, and it would make me freeze and not do things. And I feel like with age, now I'm in my 40s, I'm like, it's okay, I'll just get back up. And it's not really about making the mistakes, it's really like how fast you end up, like back, you know what I mean? Getting back on that horse right after it happens.
So when did you fall off the horse, like royally?
I mean, so many times. Yesterday, no. I mean, I feel like the first one that comes like to mind, it's kind of like COVID, right? Like
COVID,
I was living in New York at the time.
Okay.
I was on a trip to London and people told me, don't go. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go. It's a
Is
business
this like
trip.
the March 13,
Yes.
14, 15,
Yeah, like
16
right
moment?
before.
Okay.
Right
Okay.
before. And my friend called me. He's like, Juan Carlos, he's like, you need to come back now. And I'm like, I can't go back. Like,
You
I'm
were
here.
in London or New York?
I was in London trying to
Okay.
get back to New York.
Okay.
And then my flight was for the next day, and all of a sudden the ticket was $5,000. And I was like, who is going to do that? No one is going to close the borders. I have a visa. Like, we're going to be fine. I board the flight, and they get me out of the plane, and they tell me I'm not allowed to board the flight because I had an O visa. So I was not allowed to come in the country because I'm not American. So I'm like, great. So now I'm stranded in London with a couple. Like, clearly I needed to leave. So I'm like, where do I go? What's open? I'm from Peru, but I haven't lived in Peru for years. Like I have an Italian citizenship, but I don't really live there. Like I've lived in America most of my adult life. Like where do I go? So I went to Mexico because that's where my mom was. Yeah.
Oh.
So I land in Mexico and then boom, I have COVID. So then I'm like 3 weeks in basically like house arrest
You
in
have
my
COVID.
tiny,
Right,
like,
right, right.
you know, and I didn't want to see my mom and she's older because I didn't want to give it to her. So literally they were like putting the food by the door for me to like grab it because no one could touch me.
So don't no one like dies because everyone's
Basically. And then I like, no one knew what was happening. And then
Yeah.
we moved to Acapulco because that's where my mom lives most of the time. And
is that where she does her show?
No, she works in Mexico City.
Okay,
but
that's right,
like
that's right.
her home is like Acapulco, like her happy place. And I was like, okay, it sounds very exciting. I do not wish for anyone to be locked with their mother for like 2 months. It was so
lived 10 weeks with
stressful.
my parents.
It was so stressful because there's also like this like WhatsApp news if you're Latin or a third world country person. Like everyone was just passing all these horrible things. My mom was like getting hyper about this, and I didn't know. No one knew what was
WhatsApp
true.
news.
It felt like we
Wait,
were
can
living
we
in a
just-
lifetime movie.
Can we talk about WhatsApp news for people that don't know about WhatsApp news? It's just hysteria going on through
Full
WhatsApp.
on. Like Latin people specifically love to
What?
like rant on WhatsApp, and then they make these groups of like 50 people, and everyone chatters. So like you even leave your phone for 5 seconds, and there's like 200 messages.
Oh my God.
And my mom, I mean, that generation, they don't know how to discern truth from like, you know, lies on the internet. So anything that they see, this is happening, the world's
Right.
ending, the Martians are coming. And I'm like, I can't, like, you can't be putting this stress on me, right?
Right.
So then I'm like, what can I do for me? I couldn't see anyone because I was afraid that if I saw anyone, I would give it to my mom. So I was in a bubble, literally physically for 2 months. In the meantime, I lost my business, basically, because I was consulting for retailers and luxury brands. And the first person to go is me because I didn't need to do the buying trips. No one knew what was happening with the industry. No one knew where we were going to go. No one knew anything, right? So first I lose my job. Then I'm not allowed to like go to New York where all my things are. I'm with like a suitcase of winter clothes in Acapulco, like buying at Walmart, whatever I could like find, like a muumuu or something because I had no clothes. And then my dad passes away. And
oh my gosh.
it was just like back to back, you know what I mean? And just when like
my
you just couldn't get a
gosh.
break, and I didn't know when am I gonna
dad
be able to
passed
come back to the States, or where do I go from now, and how do I pack my things? There were so many questions and no any answers. And then I read this book, which was like a life-changing moment for me. I read this book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. Have you read it?
No, but I do love Mr. Dispenza.
I love him. Thank you. If you're listening to it one day, please, I love you. You changed my life. I think I felt like everything was happening to me. And I was taking a role of victim in my own life. And I couldn't keep doing that because everything was going wrong. And I didn't know how much worse it could get if I kept being in that position. So I started reading this book, and I always believed in the power of manifestation, but I didn't realize about like visualizing. I didn't know enough about visualization and like really every day waking up and like living the life that you want to live and becoming the person you want to become. So then everything around you starts changing. So I started going on these walks by myself and then just like listening and like meditating and like just trying to like get back to like who I was and what I wanted and like what my life should look like. And it's really funny, like towards the end of it, I was in a car getting from Acapulco to the plane when I was finally allowed to like come back to America, and I could feel the hand of a man in my hand. And I was like, next time I'm here, I'm going to come back to Acapulco with the guy I'm going to marry. And
Because you just were.
I was single.
But you were also you were in the mindset of calling it in. You thought, I am Mr.
This is
Joe
my life.
Dispenza right now. I'm channeling, and I'm going to do it.
I
I'm going to
see
make
it.
it happen.
Like I literally
You
saw
started
it.
to see other things, so then you really just kind of stepped
I was
in.
like, I closed my eyes. I was on the drive, and I'm like, I am here with a guy. Like this is happening.
I got
like
chills.
you know, and full on. That's what ended up happening, which is insane considering that was
It's not
very much.
insane. It's not insane. It's life.
Our life can change very quickly, right? And we just get caught up in these moments that just feel a lot because feelings are temporary, and we forget about that, and we get caught up, and then it's very addicting to become a victim. because then it's for you.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't. That's not my Achilles heel. I have many other, but I don't understand the victim
Mentality.
It's tough for me because I come from parents who created their reality, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so
I feel like it's also kind of like how it's hard to see your faults and it's sometimes hard to look in the mirror.
But why is it addicting to be a victim?
Because everything is happening to you. You have no power.
You know what? Actually, it's an excuse not to engage with your life.
Yeah, or to yourself, or be honest with yourself
Be
about what
honest
you
with
are,
yourself.
what you want.
So you
right?
can just let life happen to you instead of for you, with you.
Yeah.
Hand in hand.
Yeah. And then I feel
But
like
it's not good.
it's definitely not good because you're not even being honest to who you are to begin with, which is why a lot of the things are not coming to you.
Yeah, I think we have to just stop and dive deep here because victim mentality is like ruining humanity.
It is. It's a way for you not to take responsibility and accountability for your actions and your life. And it's a lot easier to say, you did this to me, that I'm doing this to myself, right? It takes a lot of self-work to realize that we are an active member in our lives and we are very much leading our lives.
We are the only one that creates our life.
And God. Whatever you want to call
Of
energy,
course, the higher
universe,
power.
the higher power. Yeah.
But you're creating it. I believe that you can create your own fate. So, which is why I always look to you and your resilience and being at rock bottom, which was your rock bottom, and saying, you know what, I'm gonna step out.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna be in rock bottom anymore.
No, I'm gonna take action, right? So then I started online dating while I was in Acapulco, stranded, and I said that I was in LA, and I had 20 dates lined up with all these random guys. I started talking to them, and I'm like, yeah, right now it's not the right time to meet. Obviously, I was not telling them I'm stuck with my mom in Acapulco because that's not chic.
I mean,
or
it
cute.
is chic knowing your mother. And
Yeah, but then it sounds like I'm
Acapulco.
a snob. It just doesn't sound like what I'm trying to appeal here. I'm trying to be, like a normal, cool girl.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, let's figure that out. And I had all these dates lined up, and then randomly I moved here, and I'm a big believer that when
You randomly moved, or you were?
I wanted to move here
decided
for a
to
while.
move?
I wanted to move to LA for a long time, and I was scared
Why?
because my life, what I thought my life was very New York, Paris. It was very revolving around fashion and the calendar and the parties, right? So it was a very weird. I was not happy. But on the outside, my life looked so glamorous. If I would have been a child looking at my life, I would have been like, wow, you made it, right? And I was not happy because all I wanted to do was have a family.
Yeah.
And have a home and kind of have that protection because my parents are divorced and I didn't have the family I thought I wanted to have growing up. So I always wanted to gift that and have that for my kids and kind of build that together with someone. But I was hopping from fashion week to fashion week, doing all these events, and it is very glittery, right? And it's very beautiful, and it's not real.
And it's fun.
It is fun, but it's not real. So then you're still going home alone.
Well, it is real because you're still at the parties and you're doing the thing.
But everyone is wearing clothes that are borrowed. Most people are wearing, you know what I mean? It's not
Totally. It's very external, and it's not.
It's not a way to be happy. I feel like it's great to go to the events. I still go sometimes. It's fun. I'm not, denying that there's an appeal to it. But if you're looking for that to make you happy, it's not going to make you happy, right? I don't know if you read I Return to Love by Marianne Williamson. And she says that every time you're looking for external things to be happy, you're going to be miserable. Because you don't need anything that you don't have to be happy. You decide to be happy. It's your choice to be happy every day, every moment, even when things are bad. It's your choice to turn it around. It's not the universe doing anything to you. It's on you to change it because you are the one that has the power.
And that is what success is.
And that is success.
Right?
In my opinion, and peace.
Peace.
I really thought, because I'm very high energy, I really thought excitement and traveling and doing all these things that was happening, happiness was, and kind of this things outside of me. And now the more I age, I grow up and I have a family now and stuff, it's just, I just want peace and freedom. You know, I feel like recently we had a moment with my husband where we had to like really like sit down. We like started a new company together, and we're talking to one of our mentors, and he was saying like you need to sit down and see what kind of life do you want to have, what's going to make you happy, right? Like how much money, like how much, like what does it look like, right? And I always thought about it on my own end, but we had never really discussed it as a couple, I guess, especially when it comes to money, because now with social media, everyone is so caught up in like, I want the biggest house and the biggest everything, and like the more money, more. And I see a lot of my friends that have that and they're miserable, right? So maybe you need a $10 million house. Maybe I'm happy with a $2 million house. Maybe I'm happy in an apartment, right? What is actually going to make me happy?
Right.
Like, what is that life going to look like? And then you start working and like towards that life that you want to have and making decisions to like
support that
life, right? Which things that it really is like a strategy for your life. It's built on a strategy like you would do for a business, for your own life. This is where I want to go. What are the steps I need to take in order to get there? But also be honest.
It's a practical approach. It must be your German schooling.
Probably. But I also like, I was very wrong about what I thought I wanted. And that's what I couldn't even find someone to be with.
Let's go back to COVID, online dating.
Yeah.
How did you manifest your soulmate? What?
So I went to a healer 2 years before that.
Okay.
And I still go like twice a year.
Is it on the phone?
No, I go here. It's in Santa Monica.
Okay.
And Peter. And I went and I was like, I feel like I'm stuck. Like I keep going on the same date over and over again. And I'm single and I keep attracting these assholes and like, I don't know what's wrong with me. And then he like sits me down and then he's like, what kind of man you want? And I'm like, I want like a strong type A man and like da-da-da and like, but a family guy that is going to spend time with his kids. And I go over my whole list of things that I want. And he's like, okay, well, do you realize that you castrate men the moment you walk into a room? And I'm like, thank you. Thanks. I thought he was a healer. You know what I mean? Like, I thought you were going to tell me how beautiful I was and kumbaya. It did not happen. He was like,
that's a good healer.
He was like, you're never going to be the thinnest. You're never going to be the prettiest. And you're never going to be the youngest. And I was like, I am going to go kill myself right now. Like, I am going to die alone and fat somewhere. Like, this is not nice. Like, what am I going to do? And so I was like, okay.
So but why were you castrating
Wait,
them?
He said, you were pretending to be something you're not.
Oh, yeah.
So no one gets to see you,
with
right?
all the external stuff.
It's just like you're empowered woman fighting. And like, so you're trying to attract a man that wants to be with a female, but you're coming off as male with the energy that you're bringing into a room.
Yeah.
So no one has space to like be themselves. And because you're not being your true self, no one can actually fall in love with you because no one is seeing you. They're seeing this facade that you're putting up. And I never really like realized it, but I was like, oh, because I am very vulnerable and like I am very soft, but I've been hurt so many times that I just try to portray this strength and like power, so people back off and leave me alone, right? And when he told me that, I was like, okay, let's just change things around. And fast forward to when I did meet my husband during COVID, and we're having a date.
And you met online?
We met online. We met on, which one is this?
Hinge, Tinder?
Hinge. I was doing all of them. I even was doing I was in every app. I had like a matchmaker. Like it was a job.
But that's like, a resilient person just attacking their life,
and
right?
Going with a schedule. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, schedule. And I was like, okay. So I go on a date with him and he picks me up, brings me flowers and chocolate. I'm like, this is a serial killer. Like he is going to like who brings flowers and chocolates to like someone on their first date?
Crazy.
Who does that?
Did he do that always in the past?
He's just a nice guy, and I didn't knew nice men, right?
So I feel like I don't.
I'm like, that is so creepy. Why are you bring? I literally saw them, and I'm like, oh, is this from your last date? And he was like, are you always as big of a bitch?
Oh shit.
I was like, okay. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna back down. I bought them for you, and I was like, I am not used to people being nice to me like that, or straight men being nice to me like that. So I was like, it put me back in my place. And then we're having dinner. We go to our dinner, and he had broken up. Like he was engaged to someone else, and they had broken up, right? And I had heard a rumor that he had denied that he was still with this person, whatever. So I was like, I don't understand. I'm like, so you were with this girl? Like, what happened? You cheated on her, right? That's what happened. You probably cheated on her, and that's why she left you. And then the craziest things happened. Like he tells me her dad was dying for 2 years, and he was going with her like to Brazil to like take care of the dad, and he was there for that whole time. And then I start crying because my dad had just passed away and no one was there for me. And it really broke me, and it really made me, it forced me to open up and be vulnerable with him in a way that I had never been in any other date. And like, I saw his pain, and I was like, who was there for you? Because you were there for all those people. And I feel like that's what I had been doing my whole life. I was just there for everyone, and no one was really there for me. And I finally found someone that I could be there for, but he could also be there for me. And I knew that day that I was going to marry him, which is like the craziest thing. And then we both were crying during the date, which is really not like the sexiest thing. Yeah, we're both crying here. Like, I was crying during the date. He was crying during the date. And like, it was just this weird magical moment.
Yeah.
And then I remember like we were making out after, like at some point, and I saw stars. And it's very, like, I don't know, like, I understand this sounds very woo-woo, and I swear I'm not like a kumbaya type person.
I am only kumbaya.
Like, I try to like be very German about things, like, but I when I got pregnant with my son, I kind of like saw like this black space and like these stars too. So in these very important moments of my life, I felt a very strong presence of something bigger than me. But opening up and showing who I was really did. And I was not trying to be cool. I didn't have anything to be cool about.
There.
He was also not the type of guy I would have necessarily gone over on a date with if I was still in New York doing that, right? Because I thought I wanted like a very different guy.
Yeah.
Right? He's American. I never thought I was going to end up marrying an American guy. Like culturally, I thought that was going to be different. Like we come from very different worlds, but like we want exactly the same things. So it just makes us, and we're very like compatible, and then we're really good about working through things together, you know, which I think makes a really big difference because we're both just ourselves.
Yeah. Wow.
I'm
okay.
sorry.
So, I mean, no, it's so important to share. I lost my mom a couple years ago, and I feel like it totally broke me open. And there has been so many hard things about it, and there's also been so many beautiful things about it.
Yeah.
Like, I just feel like I take charge of my life in a way that I never have before. Like, I want to do a podcast, I hire a podcast. I figure it out.
Yeah.
And I just feel like I can figure whatever
You're
I need to.
You're very resorceful as a person.
I am
You're
a very
resourceful person.
That's one of the things that, yes, I'm resourceful. Totally, I'm resourceful. But it changed me forever to lose a parent. And you kind of told us what was happening at your rock bottom, and you like, yeah, my dad died and blah, 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 blah. Like, can we talk about the fact that your dad died and I've known you for how long? And I didn't even know that.
It was it's complicated. I feel like it's easier to talk about it when you had a healthy relationship with a parent, because then you're just sad, right? So I was very close with my dad. My dad and my mom were together, and then they got divorced. And when they got divorced, it was a very public divorce. And the only thing I asked both of them, that they both did promise.
How old were you?
17.
Oh.
But I also didn't see it coming, right? My parents didn't fight at home. Like, I didn't think anything was wrong. I thought I lived in a very happy, normal family. And then my mom became famous, and I didn't know what that was like. And I was in a very small town, like, where people just talk a lot. And I was like, please just don't. Like, it was already very dramatic. I'm like, just don't talk about it. And then eventually he did.
He did what?
Break his promise and talked about like my mom. And then he was calling me negatively, talking about my mom. And my mom never did. My mom has a lot of wrongdoings, but my mom never said anything wrong about my dad. And she supported him until the day that he died. Like, my mom is not a saint. I have a lot of issues with my mom, but my mom stuck to like her end of the bargain type thing, and my dad didn't. And it was very disappointing for me. And then I like started finding out more things about him. Like, he had cheated on my mom previously and stuff. And my dad was always like a pillar of like integrity, or that's how he portrayed himself. So it was so disappointing to me.
Did you find out about this after he died?
No, I found out this after they got divorced, right? And then slowly I was still kind of talking to him, but he was very toxic and talking bad things about my mom. And I am 17, like being thrown into like a public arena where everyone is talking and I don't know. I need peace. I need my parents to be parents, right? And take care of me and protect me. And I don't think neither of them was necessarily doing that. So my mom was throwing money on me. So at least I could do whatever. And then my dad was talking shit about my mom constantly. And I'm like, I can't have that energy. I need to cut you off, right? And then there was a second instance where that happened. And then he started talking bad about my sister and I, saying like all these things. And then it just started like driving like a wedge between us.
Okay.
And during my adult life, my whole 20s, my dad was not there for me.
Okay.
Right? I couldn't count on him for anything.
I'm sorry.
So how do you feel? Like, it's hard. It's hard to elaborate on like pain because I do feel pain. Like, and I loved him, but I was very angry at him.
Right.
Right? I am still very angry at him. Like, I'm trying to like work on it, but it is upsetting. Like, you were not there for half my life, right? Almost. So, and that was your choice. And how can I make room for pain where there's still so much anger, right? And I didn't want, and it's this weird thing because like you cannot talk about it because everyone just expects people to be like, he was such a wonderful person. He was the best dad and the best na. And like, I'm sure like I am not the best person. I'm sure there's people that don't like me that are like, you know what I mean?
Whatever.
I have days, you have days, like no one is perfect. Just because someone dies doesn't mean that they were perfect. And I feel like that's how people like to talk about death.
Well, I just feel like, we've been taught this virtue of never speak poorly about people that have passed, maybe because they can't defend themselves.
Yeah.
But
everything I've said to him, though.
But you can be real.
But that's the thing. I'm not talking shit. For me, talking shit is when you're not honest about what you're saying. Like, if I say something to your face, I should be able to go and say that to your husband, right? Like, because I already said it to you. So I'm not talking shit because I told you how I feel. If you disregard my feelings and you keep doing the same things I'm telling you that hurt me, that is a choice. And then that enables me to have a choice. And for me, for self-preservation, with the tools that I had at the time, the only way to do that was to like drive like a wedge, like a physical space between us, so it wouldn't affect me so much.
So do you feel like that's when you first became resilient? Like when you felt like you had to grow up because your mom suddenly got famous, your parents got a divorce. I mean, that sounds like recipe for growing up to me. That sounds like recipe for resilience to me.
The worst, I feel like it was even before. Like, I felt like I never got to be a kid.
Because your mom was becoming famous?
No, because my mom and my dad were my kids.
Oh, they were, okay.
So, and it's very weird, and I sound like, my husband didn't believe me, and like, now he sees my family dynamic, and like, even my mom will tell you, like, yeah, Victoria's my mom. Because like, I'm the stronger one,
yeah.
But I also didn't have a choice. Again, right? I had to be the strong one because my mom was kind of a mess and my dad was kind of a mess. So then I was trying to operate it to the middle, and my sister needed me to be strong. So I took on that role because I felt like that was the only opening that I had in the family. Mm-hmm. And I always felt like if I wasn't there, things were going to fall apart. And it took me years of therapy to realize that it's not my responsibility.
So you've just been resilient. What I've felt since the second I've met you, you've been resilient since day one.
I feel like I had to be because of the situations I were put in. And I'm not victimizing myself. I feel like I've done very well with the situations that I've been given, and I feel like I've managed to be very successful on a emotional level as well, considering where I come from and kind of like the dynamic of my family and how I grew up.
Yeah. Wow.
Boom. Wow, this is why I don't talk about it. It's very heavy stuff.
I know, but it's important to talk about it because everybody deals with heavy stuff.
I feel like there's also this idea about death that people don't like to talk about it. And
I know.
I like, if I die, please talk about me. Like, please talk about me all the time. The good, the bad, what you remember, what was funny. Like, is the only thing we know for sure it's going to happen to each one of us. And it's the one thing that everyone is petrified to talk about. I remember like after my dad died, at the very beginning, everyone texts you, right? And then everything dries up and everyone forgets.
Yeah.
And that's when you need, and they feel awkward. And I've been in that position before. I felt awkward. I didn't want to call someone because I don't know what to say. Like, do they even want to talk about this? I don't want to bother them. You want to feel like people are there for you.
You just want to talk about it.
Yeah.
You want to make it kind of like not a big deal because it is such a big deal to you. You just want to be like, But so that's why I've kind of like done these creative outlets and did a brand, collaboration with Lafayette with my mom's artwork, and I made a modern lullaby album, and now I'm doing this podcast. She kind of cracked that. She was the artist.
Yeah.
But I always say, or I try to remember, that where there is grief, there was love.
There is love. Because love doesn't go away.
Love.
Right? It just transforms. What? Love is what's making you do this podcast.
You're gonna make me cry again.
Love is love is what drives everything that you do. So everything does come from love. You know what I mean? Everything comes from love or fear. And love doesn't really stop because someone dies. It just transforms to different things. I'm sure you see it in your daughter sometimes. I'm sure you see it in a bird sometimes. Like, it is still like it's around you all the time.
I know. I feel like I'm one of those people that can like tune into the butterflies in Brazil. Like, yeah. I can feel things, and I can feel people, and like, I'm not acutely psychic where someone walks in the room and I say like, your uncle died yesterday and XYZ, but I can see, oh, you're really hurting. What's going on?
Yeah, it's an awareness too.
It's an awareness, and I've started to like flex that muscle, especially since my mom passed to the next consciousness, and I realized, whoa, it's like life and death for me. We're all together, and like the dead are in a fishbowl, or we're in the fishbowl, but we're all kind of in the same room together.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being my friend. Thank you for being my interviewee today.
Thank you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud for the fact that you're just taking reign and like doing the things that you want to do. Very impressive.